What is some challenges, conflicts, and ethical considerations for working in rural social work as presented by Humble et al. 2013? Well, there are several different things. And challenges could be that some people in rural communities may be resistant to outside service providers, um, and weary of psychological interventions. Uh, and that could be due to a lack of trust from anybody that is considered an outsider. Uh, if you're not an insider, um, they may not take too kindly of you, and they certainly won't want to listen to you. Um, so that is a definite challenge if you are um, somebody who moves to a rural area to practice. Uh, Another challenge that is talked about is how a lot of social workers um, that work in rural communities are often isolated. Um, Depending on just how rural the community is, you may be the only social worker in the area, um, and that could be very isolating, and that could come with a whole host of challenges. Um, you may have to wear all sorts of different hats. That kind of goes back to what we was talking about before of being a generalist practice versus an advanced practitioner. If we're a rural social worker and we're the only one, boy, that's going to put a lot on us. We're going to have to take off and put on all kinds of different hats, probably in the same day. So that's definite challenges. Um, Another challenge and an ethical implication that kind of stuck out to me was how in some rural areas a social worker may conduct their practice in their group sessions in their home, and that to me has some things to think about. I recently started watching a TV show, sort of a little bit of a therapist who was kidnapped from his home. He practices out of his home. I can't remember the name of it, um, but one of his patients kidnapped him from his home, um, and locked him up, chained him up, to try to demand him to help him. Um, and it talks about would community members take measures such as attempting to break into the home of a social worker to try to find out information about other people, or it could the social worker's home be vandalized and the property damaged. Humble talks about those things. Um, and the I actually just went to a massage therapist not too long ago, just a couple days ago, who practices out of her home, and it struck me to ask her how long has she been doing it, and has she had any trouble? And she said she'd been doing it out of her home for like 30 years, and she's never had any kind of trouble. And I thought that's great, but I don't know. For me, there seems to be a professional boundary between work and home, and I can see how some good aspects could come out of that working in your home, but I don't know. I don't think that's such a good idea. There can definitely be some not only just ethical implications, but some safety considerations to take into with that as well. Because I certainly don't want the people I'm working with to maybe know where I'm living, especially if we don't jive. Maybe they don't particularly like me or whatever. And that can kind of go along with some of the things that's talked about more is about having the dual relationships with people in a rural area. Um, in a small town, small community. Again, everybody knows each other, and that kind of you got to take into consideration confidentiality in that aspect too. If you're the social worker and everybody's coming to you about their own issues, you're going to know a lot of stuff, and you're going to be bound by ethical, you know, by ethical boundaries to not say anything by law. And it can be very easy. Some people are very manipulative and very smart and know how to get things out of you. So you have to watch out for that. I like what it says, what Humble says. When multiple relationships are unavoidable, social workers should take steps to protect clients, and are responsible for setting clear, appropriate, and culturally sensitive boundaries. I think that's also in our code of ethics, the National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics. And I think that is extremely important. Um, from the get go, from the word go, before anything else is done. Let's define what this relationship is and how we are going to act and what's going to be done if we see each other outside. That is so extremely important. Even more so in a rural community. Um, it's one of those things. It's kind of like you hear the saying that it takes a village, um, and I believe that to be true. And if you're working in a small village, especially if you're an outsider, the same village that we are trying to help can, can turn around and destroy us if we're not careful. Um, so it's extremely important to define relationships from the get go. Um, and I think if you are a rural social worker and you start to develop friendships and other sorts of relationships, um, you have to be careful too, because you don't want to have those friendships and other relationships to cross over into your professional relationships either. Saying like, okay, if you develop a friendship with somebody, but they are needing some social work intervention, but you're the only one in town, what are you going to do? This is your friend. This is somebody who you relate to on a personal level, but you're the only one around to do the work that's needing to be done, for this particular person or situation. How are you going to handle that? How would you? And that's a very tough line. So hopefully there would be more than one social worker in a in a in an area, no matter how small it is. Um, I think that's probably the biggest thing to look out for is the village mentality and defining relationships and boundaries, um, and to kind of understand that some people may be not receptive to social work interventions, and to be mindful of that, are probably the most important things to talk about.